I talk about Hungary, I talk about Asia, because Europe will have a very big role in deciding the big issue of war and peace in the world. If Europe lightly takes American positions, and Americans feel that they have the support of the entire Western world except Russia, the chances of a clash with China may become more likely. Take the issue of Taiwan, which many European leaders jump onto without knowing the history, forgetting that the status of Taiwan was settled in the Cairo Declaration and confirmed in the Potsdam Proclamation, and therefore a status which was legally agreed to by all the major Victoria powers. And to lightly now say, well, you know, the Taiwanese people should have a referendum, maybe they should consider being different. Yes, you must consider the views of local people. But you push that principle, well, what about Crimea? What about Catalonia? What about Scotland? Maybe one day Wales? Maybe the northern part of Serbia? The whole of Africa would dissolve into violence if you say referendums should decide political boundaries. So to say the issue of Taiwan is negotiable depends. Now for the Chinese, this is, they say, the core of all core interests, and already agreed to for a long time. But in recent years, for other reasons, being played lightly. They react neuralgically. And the Americans know that if they resile from the one China position, then they are on a collision course. So Blinken, in his recent visit, affirmed to Xi Jinping, I think less than a day ago, or maybe a day ago, that no, we hold to that position. But in Europe, the knowledge of history has weakened. It has been an obsession with your own internal construction. The British, who used to understand distant parts of the empire intimately in order to divide and rule, they've lost that knowledge. When I was trade minister, I met a deputy minister from the UK, from Scotland, and I was shocked by how little he knew about Asia. When his forebears established, say, the underpinnings of Hong Kong, the Scottish legacy in Hong Kong, it's a profound legacy, but a younger generation would not know it. So this issue of Taiwan is dangerous because there is no deep understanding. And in the coming years, we have to anticipate a world where the Chinese GDP may equal that of the US and EU combined. It's not inconceivable. China's GDP per capita is 1/5 of the US today. If it reaches half that of the US, then its GDP would be that of the US and the EU combined, more or less. It's just arithmetic. Is it inconceivable that China's per capita GDP should reach half that of the US? But they're hardworking people. They're strong families. They're high savers. They study. They're obsessed with examinations. In classical music, there are tens of millions of Chinese students learning music in China. So it's entirely possible that the per capita GDP will reach half that of the US. If it becomes even more than half that of the US, then its economy will be that of the US, EU, and Japan combined. So we are talking about a phenomenon which is not small. Everyone will be affected. Every family, every company, whether for offensive reasons or defensive reasons. And if you are a company and you have a huge market developing, you study that market thoroughly, in detail. But if you watch how geopolitics is being managed today, about statements being made, policies being formulated about China. I look at some of these individuals and ask myself, how much do they understand China? And yet they're speaking as if China is reducible to a few stock phrases. It's an autocracy. Xi Jinping is abandoned what Deng Xiaoping advised China to do. Reducing China to a few slogans, stock phrases, and thinking that on that basis you can make policy. You're bound to make big mistakes. So when I come to Hungary, being also from a small country, you have a suitably modest view about your own ability to change the world. And therefore, you have to understand the world so that you can act skillfully. So in Singapore, we know you can't change the world. You could accept the world for what it is. So we have close links to America. So we study America. We send people there. I think we understand America to some degree. We are ethnically 3/4 Chinese. And we know China is going to become more and more important to us. So we study China. And I hope European leaders will gradually deepen the understanding of China and take China seriously against its own history and civilization. This year, ASEAN's trade with China will reach $1 trillion. It is significantly bigger than China's trade with the US, than China's trade with Europe, than Europe's trade with America. And in the coming years, the economies of Southeast Asia and China will grow together. And that's one reason why we are doing relatively well. May I make this point, because it may surprise you, that China was the least damaged economy during COVID. China was the last country to open up, which is the best strategy in an epidemic. China had the fewest number of deaths per million than any other major country. In 2020, while the rest of us were at home behind our screens and then ordering from Amazon or whatever, and then looking forward to the parcels which are delivered through our doors. Who made the things in the parcels? They're all made in China. So for 3 years, China's factories produced for the entire world. In 2020, China's trade surplus, merchandise trade surplus, was $510 billion. In 2021, it became $670 billion US. In 2022, when you had the Shanghai lockdown and people said that China was really in horror and confusion, China's trade surplus went up to $870 billion. China did not have to print money, unlike Europe or America or Japan. And that's why today, while interest rates are trending up everywhere, in China, interest rates are trending down. This gives the Chinese government enormous policy flexibility. And if China does well, Hong Kong will do well, Singapore will do well. I've been to Europe over 100 times. I don't think I have more than a superficial understanding of Europe. China is twice the size of Europe in population and in land area maybe 3 times, or more, well, let's say twice. So it's a complex reality. There's no danger that any European will understand too much about China. So when I meet young European friends who ask me for advice, I say, go to China. Find any and every reason to go to China at least once a year. I say it will be good for you, and there's no danger that you will learn too much. Why should you not? If you are a parent, and this economy is going to be bigger than anyone else on earth by a big margin, you better know it, whether for offensive reasons or for defensive reasons. And you should teach your children Chinese, or at least get them interested, because it will be a great asset to them.